realities, natural and supernatural worlds that surround us. Here we delve into those topics that challenge us to think outside the limitations of realism, where we test the boundaries of imagination and are forced to think outside the confines and restrictions of what is normal. We are the creators, the writers, the artists, and the insane. Welcome to our Wyrd Realities.
Hey everyone, this is Hadley Thorne, and I am here today with Wyrd Murders, Mysteries, and Mayhem alum, Miss Jenn Salmons. And Jenn, how are you
Hello.
doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. This is just one of our getting to know you sessions, and it's just Jennifer and I having a conversation. We'll talk a little bit about Wyrd Murders, Mysteries, and Mayhem, what has gotten Jenn involved in our stuff that we're doing here at Wyrd Realities, as well as just getting to know her a little bit better. So if you're there and you're tuned in, be sure to give us a comment. You know, this is a live streaming event, and oh, it's Landa. Hey, Landa. We're definitely here
Yeah.
for conversation. So, all right, Jen, so you want to give us a little bit of
Hey,
background about
Linda.
yourself?
I have a degree in counseling, and I'm a therapist here in Kansas City, Missouri. I have a private practice and been doing telehealth since the pandemic. Um, I don't know, lots of stuff.
Well, you do the critical incident stuff too, which is very interesting.
Yes. I Most people have an employee assistance program or an EAP, which most corporations and companies have that as one of the benefits. Well, one of the things they asked me to do is to go on a site. For example, if there's a mass layoff, I've only had that once, where they have to let people go. They have a therapist on staff there ready to talk to everybody and talk to them about their options for getting an EAP at that time. Um, it's different than insurance. And then most of the critical incidents are people have passed away, either on the site or a longtime employee. Like somebody's worked for a company for 30 years and it's kind of the anchor of the place, and people, they call us in to basically go and be there as a support system for those people that are pretty upset about it. I've had one that was like, she was really young, and that was pretty traumatic for everybody there. Um, I went to a school shooting, but there were probably 20 of us at the school shooting. Um, and that was in Kansas. And last week, 2 weeks ago, something like that, I went because they were firing a long time employee who had made, um, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? He had made threats of violence towards himself mostly, but they were a little scared of what that was going to mean for them. So, gives you
Yeah,
an idea of what I do.
to me, you know, there's a lot of times when older people make comments that are taken out of context today. So,
Yes. Well, and that was probably the case more so than anything with this. They gave him the option to retire. That's how long he'd been there.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, and when I was looking at doing a true crime podcast, that was one of the interesting things about Jennifer that I wanted to bring in was that, you know, here we know someone who actually is out and about, and they're seeing criminal behavior from a different perspective. And I thought that would be something really cool to kind of bring onto the conversation, because, you know, Wyrd Realities isn't so much about, you know, we're not reporting news. We're not, you know, really doing anything more than just having conversations about things that we find interesting and seeing what other people think and take away from it. So I always try and say that what we're pulling together here is a conversation that you have with friends, and that's how we feel about our listeners. Landa has become a good friend of ours since we started, and it's just that's what we're about. We're about making connections and exploring creative thought and looking at the things that are happening in society that is kind of shaping the worlds and our personal worlds. But Jenn does offer an amazing perspective, not to mention she is a longtime friend of mine. So it's a double win for me.
Yeah, I've known you a minute.
Yeah, hot minute. We don't tell anybody how long. But yeah, she corrupted me in my youth. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, please. Lies, I tell you. Well, I actually wasn't around long enough to be the corrupter. I don't think. Was I?
You were. I won't tell details, but there was this one incident.
Oh my God. You have the incident even. Which one? What were you talking about?
Well, I think that, I'm the one that took you out to the bars and.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, who's corrupted who at 17?
Yeah.
I think I was close to 18 when I moved there. Pretty close, but not quite.
You were. You moved that summer before your 18th birthday.
Yep. Got introduced to those red ants that are there.
Yeah, fire ants.
Yeah.
We have fire ants here. But yeah, we had some good times. We've got some great memories. And some we probably don't remember that well because it was very, very hazy back in the day.
It could just make us laugh thinking about it. I went straight to ground zero. I was like, oh, geez.
Lots of trouble there. Yeah. You have no idea. Oh, Jenn and I just.
I apologize. Okay, so I got completely off track because then I went to the recovery room. All right. Anyway, I'm talking bars, people. That's what I'm doing. So way back in the day, supposedly I corrupted Heather, but we went to our senior year together at Brandon High School in Mississippi. I had moved there from Detroit. It's a little bit of a culture shock. But what it did tell me was that I can make friends anywhere. Heather's my little diamond in the rough.
Yeah, she said she saw me and she knew. She knew we were destined to be friends.
I don't know how, but I kind of just knew. And I haven't regretted that a minute since, by the way.
No. We're those friends that we cannot talk for 10 years and then pick up the phone and it's like we never stop talking.
Right.
And that's happened. There's been times we've gone through real a lot of distance where things were going in our lives that we just kind of lost contact over. But that's not what we're here. We're going to talk about some weird murders, mysteries, and mayhem.
Well, I'm interested to hear you were saying that the next show was going to be on JFK.
Yes, the next Murders, Mysteries, and Mayhem is going to be on the JFK assassination and just kind of the mystery surrounding JFK. I think it'll be fun. Scott Baker has done a lot of research into the topic and he suggested it. So we thought that would be a good one. I know it's something that, a lot of us are, interested in or curious.
And there was a really good documentary the other day. Kevin Costner played the prosecutor in that one that was by Oliver Stone, the JFK movie. And I love me some Yellowstone, so I have to point out that I did like him on that. But by the way, Yellowstone, if you haven't watched it, got to get on it. It's the best show, and that role was made for him. Like, it's my favorite role of his by far.
Really?
Oh,
I'm gonna have to hold out for Bull Durham for Kevin Costner.
It was a very good one. I'm telling you, but
didn't you used to have the Bull Durham poster?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I thought you did. About the small little woman's back and all that. I thought that was you.
No, that wasn't me. Maybe it was Morgana or somebody. Anyway, yeah, so I think it's fascinating. I mean, there's lots of. I read the Sammy the Bull Gravano book, and one of the chapters he kind of goes into it, and he was like, "It's well known that the mafia was involved," and he's like, with Jack Ruby being the person who ends up shooting. What's his name? God, I can't even think what the shooter's name was. But
Oswald.
yes, Oswald. With Jack Ruby shooting Oswald, I mean that part. It was like, why
Lee Harvey
somebody that is
Oswald,
well.
for those who were wondering.
Oh,
Lee Harvey Oswald. That was the whole name.
yes. And why is it that like people who do terrible, terrible things, their middle name?
I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of Lee Harveys out there. Lee Harvey does kind of seem like it might be common. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff to unpack with the whole thing, but we'll be doing that on our show coming up. We won't do that today.
Okay.
Today we're getting to know Jenn. So Jenn, let's talk about you.
Oh, yay. Okay, what about me?
I don't know. Let's just say, so going back to high school, and we connected there. She actually moved in next door to one of my best friends, and the hilarity over Jenn moving to Mississippi starts off with cows and ends with snow days.
Should I tell the story?
You should tell the story because it's so cute.
Okay, so my parents were already at the house. The realtor was going to bring me over. I was staying, I think it was an apartment that the railroad had got for my dad. And I was staying there. My parents went on over, and the realtor was coming to pick me up and going to take me over to my house. Well, it seemed like a really long trip to me. I was like, oh, okay. And then I look over and I see like cows in the pasture, and I'm like, oh, okay. We must be still pretty far out. Like, I just didn't understand why we were so far away still. And she's like, oh no, we're on your street. And I said, but there's cows. And I pointed to the cows, and she said, yeah, and kept driving. And I was like, wait, what? There's cows on my street. And not to mention the fact that I've never lived in a place where there were cows anywhere near. You have to kind of keep that in mind. I moved from Detroit. Before that, it was Chicago. I lived in neighborhoods like yours,
Not
Heather.
a rural
Your house was in
area.
a neighborhood. Not a rural area, no. But like your neighborhood would have been something I would have expected to drive into.
Yeah, I lived in the suburbs, but where her parents moved, it was out. Y'all had a couple of acres that y'all lived on.
It was an acre and a half, if I remember correctly.
I remember your dad mowing.
Yes. Loved taking care of that lawn. That was his thing.
It looked good. He did a good job.
Except for when I had
so
the
she
party.
wasn't used to the cows. That was number one. She thought that
They're cows.
she was going to the country.
Well, I really thought I was moving to a swamp.
And you got to keep in mind,
that,
and let me tell y'all, you got to keep in mind that this is like a 5-10 minute drive to the capital city. So it really wasn't like she was out in the country. I mean, this is, just an unexpected bunch of cows.
Well, there were cows.
But my favorite is when you talk about how the hot weather and the snow days.
Okay. So it's like 10 o'clock on a school day in the morning. And I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so late for school. I can't believe my mom didn't wake me up. So I run downstairs, and she's outside and kind of doing something, I don't know, in the backyard, probably more lawn stuff because we had an acre and a half. And I was like, Mom, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I needed to go to school. What is going on? And she goes, no, Jenny, don't make fun. I said, of what? And she goes, they thought it might snow. Now, again, coming from Detroit down to Mississippi, it could be 2 feet of snow, and it didn't matter. You were going to school in Detroit. There, it might snow. It didn't snow that day, by the way. It was like 45. It was beautiful.
Well, as someone who has driven with these crazy people when it has snowed, it's not the snow so much as it is the ice. So we don't have because it is, and keep in mind, it is relatively hot here most of the year. We just don't have the preparation for when it does get cold and the overpasses freeze over. And oh my God, people talk about black ice. It's the scariest thing ever. But we're just not prepared for it. So
Yeah, that's true.
and this is just and I'll tell you this, I don't know if I've even mentioned this, but a couple of years ago, um the snow, it snowed in town, and they had to make people leave work. They shut down the entire state, offices, everything. Well, because people were wrecking. I mean, because they don't
Yeah.
know how to drive in it, and so it is a hazard for the people to be on the streets.
Oh, I know. I figured that out when I was like, it might snow. And it's like beautiful outside. And I'm looking around going, seriously? I'm surprised they even had people at work that day when it might snow. And then it did. Like, that's shocking.
Yeah. Well, Landa lives in Texas, and she's saying that they get made fun of for their snow days too. It's a true problem down here in the South. We're just not used to it. I mean, I remember when there was like a bad snowstorm in Atlanta a couple of years ago, and people were stuck on the interstate like for hours. Like they were running out of gas because they were stuck.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's not something I normally had heard. Seriously, it didn't matter, Chicago or Detroit, you were going to school. It didn't matter how miserable it was outside. I mean, I remember standing by the bus and having the snow blowing in my face and I couldn't see. Yep. It did not matter. Yep, you were going.
Get frostbite. Don't matter.
Yep, pretty much. So I lived there my senior year only.
Well, no, you lived, so you went to school.
No, I'm saying in high school. It was only my senior year. And then I went to Hines Community College. Is it now like something different?
No, it's still the community college. It's like the biggest in the state.
Yeah, it's huge. And it had dorms, which I thought it made it very unique. Don't you think?
No.
Really? See, community colleges around here do not have that.
Well, some do and some don't here. So, but I guess it was. I don't know. You know, I went to Hines like for summer school, just not like for. I didn't live out. They only had that one campus that's got the dormitories and stuff though.
And I lived there. I got out of the house as soon as I could that summer, my senior year.
Do you remember us going, and you were living at the dorm? Because I remember it was like August after we graduated, and you were out there going to school, and we went to the Stevie Ray Vaughan concert.
Yes,
I remember.
I forget.
Kurt
I walked in a Joe Cocker fan and walked out a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan.
Yeah, I turned you on to Stevie Ray Vaughan. It's the best thing I ever did. Maybe not the best, but it's up there. It's up there with the highlights of my life as I turned somebody on to Stevie Ray Vaughan. That was a great concert.
Amazing. He was definitely amazing. And to see both
that
of
was
them
the summer that he died.
Yeah. I mean,
that was a big thing because I saw him at Memphis in May or April. It might have been the Beale Street Blues Fest. Anyway, I saw him earlier that year, and then when he came to town, it was really weird because like he opened up for Joe Cocker, but it wasn't really like either one of them was bigger than the other, you know, because I didn't really know who Joe Cocker was, and you were a Joe Cocker fan.
Yeah,
definitely. And I knew all his songs, but I just didn't know who he was. But that was a good concert, man.
From what I remember, yes, it was. Yes, we had a good time. We also, when did we see Tone Loc? Why do I remember that?
We went to the fair. That was like senior year. We went to the fair. We saw the Funky Cole Medina.
And we saw Rod Stewart at some point.
Did we?
Yep.
I don't remember Rod Stewart.
I don't know why I remember that. Actually, I remember Amy Baker saying that his song, one of his songs, she kept calling it the pain song. So I was like, we were all riding there and she was singing his pain song. Anyway, I don't know why that. I don't even know who opened up for him. I don't remember that at all.
I don't remember that concert at all. Apparently,
Well, I'm pretty sure I didn't go with Amy Baker alone.
no, Amy was my buddy, so I'm sure that we went, but I just don't remember it.
It was a very last minute thing. We hadn't really planned it.
Oh, okay, that could be okay. And just a lot of this seems hazy because we were party
Young.
girls back in the when we were seniors in high school. We were out drinking a lot of beer and spirits.
Yeah,
I guess.
it's one way to say it. Sure.
Yeah, that's what
I can't believe we never went to New Orleans together. I mean, I know that I went that one
Well, I
time.
was supposed to go with y'all after graduation, but that's when my grandfather died, and I had to go to the funeral. So
Right. I'm just saying that we never made that trip together.
no, we never
Rising.
did.
But I only went once, so, or actually I went a couple times, but
Well,
not anything like
I remember. I mean, again, so foggy. I remember like one night I got in the car with Wendy and Mike Hand and Kurt Berry, I think, and like somebody else, and we were going to go to New Orleans, and I was like, I don't need to be doing this, and I think I got them to drop me off in Hattiesburg, and I rode back with Tara Tudor and her boyfriend to because I was like, I mean, my parents will kill me, I can't do this. I was that kid. I was the kid who was friends with the bad kids who did the crazy stuff, but then like,
oh my Lord, you are making yourself sound angelic, and oh my
no,
God,
it's not.
no,
I'm not. No, but I was not going to run away from home. That was the whole thing. Is I was like, she's running away from home, and I can't do that.
Gotcha. So okay, so more about me, I guess. I went to Eastern Illinois University after that. After I left Mississippi.
And I came up there when you were moving in your dorm.
Well, I don't think you saw my first roommate.
No, I just remember I came up there
my first year.
Your first year, yeah.
And I think it was even the summer after my first year.
I think so.
Because it was like I could hang out with Bob and all of them in Decatur, which was like a 45-minute drive.
Yeah.
And that was fun. What do you think of Decatur?
I remember I thought I was crashing into a cornfield. I was on this little like puddle jumper from Chicago to Decatur, and I thought, "Oh Lord, we're going to crash," because there was like corn everywhere. It was like very children of the corn, and I was kind of nervous. And then we landed. And there you were, yay! And it was different. It was not, I guess, because I always thought of Illinois as like Chicago and places like that, and this was so not that way. It was very industrial. That's what I remember. It was a very industrial area. And I remember like we were riding around in that Jeep. Who had the Jeep?
That would have been Bob.
In Bob's Jeep, and we went by Blue Mountain. We went to some bar called the Red Dog Bar. Do you remember that? It was like in the middle of nowhere, and it's very strange.
Oh, that sounds kind of like Decatur. Actually, Christy would be much better at going, oh, yes, I know exactly where that's at.
It was in a cornfield. It was in the middle of nowhere. But we had been riding around, and I saw there was like an Indian mound or something at Blue Mountain or Blue Mound or somewhere.
It's Blue Mound. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I remember seeing that. And was surprised to see that. It was just an interesting trip. It was a very culture shock. But we did go to. This is when karaoke just started, and you took me karaokeing.
Uh-huh. Good.
And I fell out of the Jeep. I was like gonna be so smooth and like jump out of the back of the Jeep and like I kind of did a ninja roll or something. But
I
it was,
don't really remember that either.
it was very graceless of me. I just kind of can't imagine how that looked. But yeah, that was at the
I
karaoke
have
place.
killed a lot of brain cells, is what I'm figuring out from this conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember the ninja roll. I don't remember
I
the
remember
karaoke.
that Bob had a roommate whose name
Yep,
also was Bob, and
Bobby
he was
Brownlee.
dating this girl, and she was really enjoying telling me all about all of her family members who were in prison. And you finally looked at me and you said, "She's just telling you that to see how you'll react."
I don't know. Was she?
I don't know. I just remember I called her Sailor because she had such a bad mouth. And now here, look at me, years later, I've got a potty mouth. But she had a very foul mouth, very foul.
I wonder which one that was. Was her name Sean?
Possibly. I'm not sure. I just remember she had the sailor mouth.
Yeah.
And we called her Sailor. So I don't remember.
Well, I'm sure that he didn't exactly date the nicest gals. That's Bobby Brownlee. Yes. Anyway, so graduated from Eastern, and then got my master's from Eastern as well, and then started. Actually, there were two people that kind of recruited me to come work there, and I could kind of do whatever I wanted, but I also was like their workhorse, if that makes sense. And that was in Charleston, where Eastern was, and a couple different jobs in between that. And then I ended up working in Shelbyville and pretty much had my own like building, like a drop-in center, and also did domestic violence offender work, which is kind of what I really became passionate about. And um, so I was running offender groups, and then got engaged to John Petrosky, and he was in Chicago saving up money to get me a ring, I believe.
Now, you met John. Y'all both did the
Uh-huh.
counseling program together. Is that right?
I was a year ahead of him, yes. So I was in the counseling program, and he would call and ask me questions. And I used to think he loved talking on the phone. And he informed me years later, no, I didn't like talking on the phone. I go,
Like talking to
yes,
you.
you do. He used to call me all the time. And he's like, I was calling to talk to you. I didn't care about because I wasn't really, because I just wanted to have a reason to call you. And I go, oh. So I didn't realize that at the time. But yeah.
Well, let's get back to the offender work. So, when you work with the offenders, can you tell us a little bit about the program and protocols that you established?
Illinois had standards that you could go by. They had protocol standards for you. And I got that done. Well, I started the process when I was working at Abcon, the first job. And then when I went to Shelbyville and was working there, I had the site visit and all that stuff. So I was pretty much protocol approved. Um, but then I was leaving. So because there was going to be a change at the head of it, basically they didn't give the protocol approval until, and well, they ended up not, because they didn't work as well with the victims advocates and so forth. So I considered
Well,
myself a victims advocate the whole time. And
and do you feel like this work that you've done in the past that it kind of drew you into true crime? I know that you've got a passion for watching documentaries and
yes,
you like serial killers. Not like them, like when I
I
hang
don't
out,
like them. Yeah, but I like them.
but
I
I
like
mean,
watching.
you have a definite interest in crime and the mindsets of people who
Yes,
commit them. And
yes.
did that play part of this work that you've done, or did it feed that, or um
Um, I think it was a little bit of both. Because I've always watched the true crime stories. I'm very into documentaries and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I think that it definitely fed that, but it also it went along with what I was studying already. And doing the offender work, that's that was me saying, let's go to the root of the problem rather than continuing to treat victims and giving them resources. Let's stop new victims from happening if we can. So that was kind of my thought on it. It wasn't a bunch more than that, but then yeah, I got a little burnout on the domestic violence stuff.
I'm sure it's so
It's heavy.
yeah, it's real heavy, real heavy. So, but still, like I said, I feel like to me, all of that feeds into why you're a great host for the Murders, Mysteries, and Mayhem. And when you've been on the show, we usually have some spectacular conversations. I know that it was your idea to do the first episode that we did, and that was on that big
Kemper?
tall guy. Yeah, Edward Kemper.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did the and I think you missed it because you had to work. I was McDonald.
Yeah.
I think that was
Jeffrey
another one.
McDonald's
But
story is fascinating to me.
but we did do Star 80, and that was a good one.
Yep.
We've had some good ones. We did that Internet Killer, and just so y'all know, one of the reasons that we did the first internet serial killer, that was the guy that they he was putting his victims in barrels, and they found the barrels full of the women. But Jennifer and I, when we were young, and y'all heard us talk about, how carefree we were living our best life when we were 18, as most 18-year-olds should, but, we were not as
Careful.
cautious and careful as we should have been. And I mean, we're really lucky that we didn't end up in a barrel. And I've made that comment. That's how we ended up with the barrel talk. But
Yeah.
but it was a different time then. You could. Well, I guess it wasn't. 'Cause we just didn't
It
know.
wasn't. I mean, it really was around that time period where he started.
Yeah.
It was when we were out doing the stupid stuff. We're lucky we weren't in barrels. Like, that's not, I mean, it's funny, but it's also very true.
Well, I joke when I tell this. The story is when I went to see Jennifer. The last thing my mother said as they put me on the plane was, "Remember, Ted Bundy looked like a nice guy too." And I mean, this was not long after the Ted Bundy thing all came out. I mean, this was 1990, 91, and the Ted Bundy stuff, that was all like in the 80s, right?
Um,
70s and 80s.
it was, yeah,
Yeah,
70s.
he got caught in the 80s, I think. Anyway, and she tried to get that across to me, was that Ted Bundy looked like a normal person, and it just really didn't sink in. I just thought she's just trying to scare me. And she also told me, don't put my purse down, you know.
Because you're going up to that Yankee northern area.
Well, she was just, I can only imagine how frightened they were to send me, as naive and stupid as I was, out, to Chicago and all that, changing planes. And
Well, yeah, you flew right into Decatur, Illinois.
yeah, I changed planes in Chicago. And
Yeah,
that's where she was telling me, like, when you're change planes and you use the bathroom, don't put your purse down, and you
right.
know, don't put it. People get those purses. Oh God, but I joke about it. But I mean, it was a good point she had. She just, I don't think she told me the way I could hear it, or maybe I
Well,
was
when
too
people
young to
would
hear it.
say, "Oh my gosh, you work with the offenders, aren't you ever scared?" And I'm like, "I'm not the target. I'm not the person." I go, "They connect me, right or wrong. They connect me with the courts, and they connect me with being in trouble." So most of them were, on most occasions, very much gentlemen. Would, let me
And
help you with that. Let me help you carry these things. Well, and when I'd have a little dust up with one of them, like somebody says something kind of off color, and I'm like, okay. and we had to have a talk, well, then my car would end up getting scratched. It wasn't that they came after me. They would do things to show you I'm mad, kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, because of, and I say this, years later, but when I was young, I grew up in a bubble. Brandon, Mississippi is very much a controlled environment. Mississippi, in a lot of ways, is a controlled environment. But when I went to college, that first year at college, you remember I had that stalker,
Yeah.
and this was someone who was, calling my house at all hours of the night, telling me they were going to kill me and rape me in that order. And then the next morning, my roommate went to go get us some breakfast, and the minute she left, because she was like, "Do you want to go with me?" I was like, "No, I didn't sleep at all. I'm just gonna stay here." And I was scared to death. I mean, again, just fresh faced 18, my first time out in the real world, and the phone rang, and it was him, and he goes, "I know you're alone." So I knew he was watching, and that was terrifying. And at that time, you just shook it off. My dad, of course, I had to go to the police, and I had to report it, and my dad was like, "If I find out who's going to do it, they don't they don't want me to find out who's going to do it." And it turned out to be one of my friends that lived in the apartment complex with us. It was his friend from high school who was, FYI, on a church scholarship to become a pastor at William Carey College in Hattiesburg.
Wow.
Yeah. And the
Well,
guy
and
that I was
you
friends
need to
with,
say, you have to really quickly say, this is pre-cell phone. Everybody
yeah,
didn't have a cell phone.
yeah, no, this is definitely, this was in 1990. It was before cell phones, before, you know, much. Um, but we would come out of the house, and there would be condoms on the door and stuff like that. And it turned out this guy, again, he was friends with someone who lived in my apartment complex, who we had become friends with when we moved in, and we were all around the same age. But luckily, the guys that lived upstairs from me, I had these big old rednecks that lived upstairs. I called them Tex and the Woodman. they, I don't know how old they were, but they were going to school at Southern, and they were like, "If you have any trouble, you hit the ceiling with a broom, and we'll be right down." So that afforded me some feeling of protection. But I went home the next semester. I didn't stay for a second semester down there. I was too scared, and moved back in with my parents. So
Well, yeah. So that's a great example of, you think you know somebody, or people think that they're such nice guys.
yeah, well, and he only stopped when the guy I was friends with. He told him, and the guy said, "Her daddy's going to kill you." And my dad had friends who lived in that town, and he told them, he said, "Look, she's got people who live down here, and when they figure out who it is, because you remember growing up, my dad's best friends were in the FBI and in the Secret Service, so it wasn't going to be hard for him to figure out who it was." But that guy stopped. And that's what my little friend told him. He's like, "You better stop," and he did. But I mean, I still remember that guy. That's a scary stuff. I think about the barrels and stuff like that, and I just, the stories that we tell ourselves. But
Well, and that guy was very interesting to me, because at the time, it was when I first moved here that it was all coming out in the news. Like, the barrels were being found and that kind of stuff. And I had,
yeah, that was up there in Kansas City, and that was when you were
yes.
pregnant, right?
Yeah, I was got married, I had a baby, and like all this stuff is coming out, and I had no idea. Like, I know it was a big story. I know it was like national news, but I barely remember hearing about it because I wasn't watching news that
And
year.
just so y'all know, that was the John Edward Robinson. He was considered the first internet killer. We did do a show on him, which we need to do more of these shows. They're so interesting, and they're fun to do, and it's it's a lot of fun to see what everybody else comes up with the research. I love to do the research with you, and I love to do the research with just our whole team. Is we all come with something different to the table, especially Scott. And I mean, we were joking around saying that we're like, it's like Scott and the Angels instead of Bosley. you know,
Yeah.
so
Well, and what's interesting about it to me too is that there are so many times when you hear about BDSM like being not threatening, not scary, but it's a darker side of things. And he was very much into that. And the way that he got caught, which kind of makes me laugh now, is that he had invited somebody up, I believe she was from Texas. And when she came up, she brought all her toys, and he said, "Well, just keep them here. And, when you come back, when I move you back here on a permanent basis, then, you'll have all your stuff and it'll already be here." Well, then he never gave him back. So she like really, literally reported him to the law.
well, you don't mess with Texas.
But he was sex toys. But he had a lot of them, of hers. So she was like serious about getting them back.
Well,
So,
I know people who are into that type of lifestyle, and I just think that just like with anything, is you're going to Landis saying they're expensive.
they are.
That's
True.
right. Give that woman her toys back. He would avoid it. But yeah, there's a lot of people in that lifestyle, but it also calls to, I mean, it's, I don't know how to say this. To me, I can see where it would be easy to predate there. Because especially back in the beginning of the internet taking off is it was, we were going from a time of where there was a lot more innocence and a lot more trust, and people just didn't realize the dark side of things that were out there. And this
Yeah.
Robinson case was a really good because he was an interesting case subject to me, because he didn't really fit the profile of like a serial killer. He was someone, I mean, he was like it was an opportunity for him.
Mm-hmm.
Um More so than it was, I think, like with Kemper, who, was cutting off heads and burying them,
Yeah.
looking up at his mother's bedroom window. Um I just
Well,
think
then the thing with his, like the child that he stole from the woman, he kills the woman, steals the child from her, and gives it to his brother-in-law,
yeah.
like his wife's brother. And the young girl sees a picture of the mom that was killed and the baby in the picture and realizes, oh, my Uncle John was really, he stole me from my biological mom.
That's so creepy.
Yeah.
Um,
She's watching from Chicago. She's watching some show and realizes that's me as a baby. Oh my gosh, that's my mom.
it's crazy.
Yeah. And that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I've always been fascinated with that kind of stuff. I mean, just getting into the mind of a serial killer. And a lot of it started when what did he call it? Into the Darkness, I think, was one of his books. And it was this, why can I never think of the show, Heather? That's
Mine
on.
hunters.
Thank you. I read the book. You would think that would stick with me, but it does not. But Mindhunters was the guy who actually is behind that book. It was fascinating to me. He was an FBI profiler. It was something that really came out when I was starting to do the work that I was going to end
Well,
up doing.
he's the
So,
one that he was with Ted Bundy when Ted Bundy was taken to was he lethal injection or gas chamber? Can't remember.
well, and there's so much more to go on Mindhunter show. And like the BTK killer, that's out of Wichita. I mean, there's
Yeah.
still people here talking about BTK Like if you were a family member lived there, I mean, they used to go and before they'd walk into their house, they'd go make sure their phone line was still okay.
Yeah. Well, and one of the episodes I would like to see us do, and I know that this is a little bit off topic, but you remember I told you about that police chief that was around your area somewhere that he got fired for losing his shit. Excuse my language, people. But I mean, there's no other way to just say it. I mean, he really just lost it and he blacked out. But he attacked
A man who had drowned his baby.
right, and the police chief and one of the other officers had gone out there to save the baby, and he resigned on the spot because he knew that he was wrong in what he had done. But the people there really stood around him for that. And I mean, it's a fascinating case because to me it really makes you question right and wrong and the letter of the law versus the intention of the law. It's but that might not be a weird murders, mysteries, or mayhem thing. It's very mayhem though. Very mayhem. Lots of mayhem involved in beating that guy's butt. But that was a really interesting case. Though. I just like to talk about it sometime.
Yeah.
But so what kind of topics do you want to talk about coming up? I mean, do you have any besides JFK that you're really interested in tackling?
Um, there's always ones that I've watched that I would love to know kind of I mean, I know you guys did the Jeffrey McDonald one and I think that's fascinating, but I would like to know like where the case is at. Like cuz he has asked repeatedly to have DNA
Well,
testing.
what I found in regards to that was that when COVID happened, he tried to get out on a COVID pass because of his health.
Okay.
And there's some really good sites. I'll send them to you. There's some that like they keep them up to date, pretty, you know, from his new wife to um her family, the wife that he murdered's family, allegedly murdered, I should say. Um, but I believe he did it. But
He was found
also,
guilty. So we
yeah, I would really like to do that one in South Africa that I was telling you about, where the lady survived, because that was so crazy. Those guys, they were serial rapists, and they had raped these two other women and been pointed out in lineups. And so they decided they were going to kill this lady, and she lived. And I mean, how she lived, I mean, it was. I don't know how she did it, but that was a really good. We should find more stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know what people are interested in.
well, and I don't know if you've thought about this, but Mindhunters is full of people that they interviewed. Like Spectre,
Yeah.
his first name I don't remember, but like he's the one that raped all those nurses that were in nursing school and
Yeah,
dorm.
yeah, that was Chicago, wasn't it?
I
Was that
believe so.
Chicago?
Yes.
There's just a lot of cases that I think would be interesting to go in and research and pull from.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Well, I ended up getting married and moved here in 2000, and that's when the barrel stuff started coming out. And then and I didn't pay attention to it at all. So it was nice to revisit that just to kind of get an idea of what happened. Um, he was somebody who thought of it as an opportunity. Like
Yeah.
he would kill these women for a reason. Like I'm gonna benefit off of whatever. Like that one woman and her daughter.
Well, the daughter, wasn't she like on like Medicaid or something?
Yeah,
Or Social Security, and he was getting their Social Security checks or
yeah,
something?
yeah. Like he would benefit by getting their checks,
Mhm.
basically.
Yeah, he was more like a hardened criminal to me, more so than, like I said, than just a psychopath. I got somebody
Definitely a
I got
psychopath.
dreaming puppies in the background. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but somebody is barking.
Oh,
So, Landa, what kind of stuff do you want to see? I don't know if y'all can hear that. I get tickled every time they do that.
they're they're snoring.
She's barking in her sleep. It's winter. She's over there. I think
Well,
we lost Landa.
yeah, I think so.
Oh well. But yeah, I'm interested to see what we can come up with.
That's like a plethora of different people that we could cover. Like
Yeah.
just
Do you
going
want to
back
try
and
and
watching.
do like oh there she's back. All the stuff you mentioned sounds good. Do we want to try and do like I think like once or twice a month coming forward?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
Even if it's
the
just me
last
and you,
one,
we're not gonna everybody's so committed right now to doing all the stuff, so but yeah, I miss the true crime stuff.
I do too. And I think it's fun to just talk about cases and new research that you found on it or what I found out.
Well, and did you do the Girl Scout murders with me?
I believe
Because
so.
that one had been solved, and that was interesting too, was to see that they had finally, after all these years, put that one to rest. But it still had a lot of unanswered questions, but it was interesting.
Yeah. And that woman who was like the Broadway star was supposed to be in the tent next to them or whatever.
Yeah, what is her name? I can't even remember her name. That little bitty lady with the big voice.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, Jennifer, that's coming up on an hour. So I
Okay.
know we were not going to do this that long, but anything you want to tell anybody before we go?
I don't know. Have I not covered everything about me and my history? Let's
I
see.
think we left out Gary, but
Yeah, we did, thankfully, huh?
yeah.
If you want to hear that, that's the 3-minute podcast. Right?
Yeah,
I'm
you can
plugging
go
it
over
for Logan. There you go.
you can go over to Logan's and listen to the Gary story. Um,
And you get two perspectives. You can have mine and Heather's
that's right.
from Gary. Um, yeah, I think that pretty much covers
Yeah.
what I do.
Well, in the meantime, if people want to reach you, they can find you on our website, and that's going to be at www.weirdrealityswiththey.net. Um, and always you can find us on all the places.
Well, thanks for doing the interview, Miss Heather.
Thank you for doing it, Jen. And Landa, thank you for participating. We always love to have you on board with us. But there's a lot coming up today, Landa. We're also going to be doing Morgana and hopefully Rich Restucci. So we should have a couple of more coming towards you. And I think Morgana is actually even going to do one for me. So we're just trying to get our stuff out there and get people getting to know us a little bit better. And hopefully y'all can start having more conversations with us.
And
we
Landa, you're right. It was more interesting, and we did talk sex toys. Look at there, all in one day.
We did not talk sex stories here, did we?
Sex talk about sex toys.
Oh, okay. Because that is a whole nother conversation.
She said, "Thanks for making the day more interesting." So.
We'll have to have an all girls talk soon. And same time for this week we're actually not doing our Weird Wednesday. Scott Baker is going to be doing a panel with some zombie apocalypse writers, and they're going to be doing a panel for the Resident Evil series that's on Netflix. So y'all be sure to turn in on Wednesday, and that's going to be, I believe, at 9 p.m. Central. I'll get the dates and times out for y'all later, but that will be happening on Wednesday night, and then we'll be back on Thursday with Watching Weird and Friday with Weird Awakenings. So until then, guys, stay weird.
Thanks. Bye.